So now getting into the interview process, and every company does it a little bit differently. Even within the same company, teams can kind of pick and choose how they want to go about their interviews. But from all of the interviews I've gone on and all of my friends and colleagues I've talked to, there's enough overlap to where if you haven't started the interview process, I can give you some tips and techniques of things that you can expect. So this is usually what a common interview process would look like. A lot of times you're going to start off with some kind of a phone screen, and this may be with a recruiter, whether you're working with your own recruiter or you're working with the recruiter from the company. When I got this job, I had a recruiter that I was working with. So when we first met, it's just kind of a high level conversation that they want to understand your background, some of your skills. Do you know the languages that the company uses? And they're just kind of filling you out to see if it's going to be a good fit. So that's really what you want to just have prepared, some projects that you've worked on so you can speak high level about it. Try to leave a good impression. And then one of the most important things is ask questions. You want to ask a lot of questions, and if you could get any kind of insight on what the interview process is like after that, that will be extremely helpful, because again, companies can go in all different kinds of directions. So if you could get that information from the beginning of, what the company is like, the company culture, what the interview is, anything that you can ask, write down your questions and try to get some insight ahead of time. Yeah, I keep getting ahead of my slides. So, yep, ask questions. All right, so then when you get to the step of if the recruiter, they feel confident about you, you left a good impression, and they want to go ahead and pass you through, next is more than likely going to be a phone interview. So these can have a lot of behavioral questions and high-level questions about code. This may be with an IT manager or a lead dev, and these are some of the example behavior questions. So again, they may kick it off with, "Tell me about your experience." And this is something that you want to already know, something you kind of want to already have practice, so you're not just reaching for something. How do you keep up with new tech? How do you keep up with new tech? Do you, what platforms do you use to be able to talk about that? And one of the unfair things is that, it could be unpredictable at times based on who you're interviewing with. So for example, I've seen this happen. Somebody answered that question saying that they use Twitter. So the lead dev was like, man, he was saying that he uses Twitter. Like he basically he doesn't use Twitter, so he didn't see the value in it. But I was able to explain, yeah, a lot of the industry leaders are on Twitter. I follow a lot of them, the React core team, they're on Twitter. So it is a legit place. So if you do have multiple places that you use to keep up to date, definitely will mention multiple ones if you're able to. Describe a challenge that you've had to overcome. This I was asked this in a lot of different interviews, so this is another good one to, in my opinion, have something specific that you know ahead of time so you could talk about it clearly, so you're not trying to think of something on the spot. Because the first time I was asked this, I couldn't think of anything. And I was almost like, yeah, can I get back to you on that question? Let's see that next question that you have for me. So have some challenges, and then something that you worked on that you're proud of. Hopefully you do have something that you worked on that you're proud of and you're able to talk confidently about. So then a lot of the phone interviews that I've had also ask me these type of questions about the language that they use, just getting the feel of if I understand. So specifically, we're talking about React. So they may want you to discuss class first function components, state and props, access in the child component, state in the parent component, which I obviously blew in that other interview. The lifecycle methods, and then getting into some JavaScript questions like the this keyword, regular functions versus arrow functions. And I'm going to share a link at the end of this that has a lot of front-end developer questions, a lot of React questions. So these are resources that you could use to practice and go over this stuff. So they'll also probably check a more high level understanding of like Redux, of testing, of Git, and those kind of things to see if you've worked with those technologies. So you may want to brush up on some of that stuff. Um, Ask a lot of questions at every stage. You want to be asking questions. So when you get to the end of this phone interview, this is your time that you can just fire away. And let's go to the next slide. Oops. So okay, before I get to this, so with the asking questions, I've had some of the best interviews when I've had a list of questions asking such as, what is your biggest pain point at this time? So then the interview at that point, it kind of flips because it goes from almost feeling like they're solely in the position of power to now I can see them thinking about the things that they've been frustrated with and they start sharing openly. And so I'm able to gain insight about what exactly they're looking for. And I think do I have a list of that? I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. No, I have it written over here. I actually want to read that to you. So, okay. And these I can share as well. So, like, the question that I asked a lot was, what is your biggest challenge or pain point right now? Can you describe the company culture? How do devs know what to work on each day? And this was something that was important because I want to know just what the organizational structure looks like, or is it kind of a free for all? Is there a vision path for a long-term career, or is there a vision for a long-term career path? That's something important as well because you want to know, hey, do I see myself working here long-term, and how do you guys help develop people? How's performance measured? Do you have any feedback for me? Now that's a scary question because if you didn't do well, you probably don't want to hear the feedback, but it can, if you have the guts to ask that, you could get some valuable insight back from that. So, okay, so back to the slide. So what to do if you're stumped? Fake it till you make it, or be honest. And people kind of can be on both sides. Oops, both sides of this, but I personally would not recommend faking it until you make it because they're gonna know if you don't know what you're talking about right away. You're just gonna be wasting time, and they're also picturing themselves working with you. There are going to be a lot of times that you don't know what to do on your job and you need to ask somebody for help. So just the way that you deal with adversity, even if it's something that you don't know, can show a lot. So that's something to just keep in mind that you don't, it's probably not a good idea to just try to make something up. You can be honest or say, that's something I'm vaguely familiar with. I would love to learn more about it. I just haven't had a lot of experience with it. Something along those lines. All right. So continuing, once you're the technical interview. So once you've had your phone screen, once you've had your phone interview, during this time, there could be a lot of waiting because companies, they have a lot of stuff they have to do. They have a lot of candidates. They have a lot of deadlines. So it can take a while for somebody to get back to you. There are some places I forgot I applied to, and like a month or two later, they were calling me back. I was like, who? Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. So you don't know how long you'll be waiting. So for me, I'll just continue researching and studying and applying to places until I hear back. So once you get the in-person interview, the technical interview, which I would imagine is going to be virtual for a while. So some of these things I'm going to talk about you can't necessarily do, but usually that's when you get the campus visit. From the company I was talking about before, they gave me a tour of their campus. They walked me around, introduced me to everybody. We were able to just kind of talk and get to know each other, just filling each other out before we got into the technical portion. So there are a lot of different ways that this can go. And one of the ways that a lot of companies use is whiteboarding and having you solve an algorithm type of problems on a whiteboard. And the type of questions that you get should correlate with the level that you're coming in at. So, you may be reversing a string or something if you're at more of a basic level. So a lot of people feel different ways about that. There can be value in the whiteboard interview because you're able to see how somebody thinks, see how they kind of work through problems. But at the same time, it's like, is this something that they're going to be doing every day? So it can be frustrating when you're only getting whiteboard interviews when you're like, I want to show you that I can actually write code. Like, I want to show you how I write React and how I work in a dev environment. So you do have to prepare for whiteboard interviews, but like I said, if you ask questions ahead of time and you're able to get that information, that would help you so that you're not preparing for the wrong type of interview. So then you may have a code war style algorithm challenges that you do on the computer. So these are functions that you're solving on the computer, like generating a Fibonacci sequence. So then you can have a company that actually has you build a small web app right there on the spot. So this is actually how my interview was for the position that I have now, to where they sent me ahead of time. I knew ahead of time exactly what I would be doing. So I knew that I would be making an API call and what I needed to display on the page and how it needed to look. So I really appreciated this interview because I was able to bring my computer. I was able to just fire up a project with Create React App. I pulled in Material UI. So again, shout out to Call them all. And I was told later on that them seeing me use Material UI was one of the reasons that they chose me, because seeing me pull in the library, look at the props, it was a similar process to what they do with their internal design library. So yeah, thanks again, Call them all. So yeah, you may have an interview where you're able to build right there on the spot, and that could be good, but it can go wrong as well. I ended up getting a lot of errors on the spot to where things started off great, and I got an error that I just could not figure out why it was there. And I was like, oh man, like it's happening again. It's starting to go downhill. But the team, they actually started trying to debug and trying to figure it out with me. And when it took a little while, I was like, all right, cool. It's not just me. This is something weird. But it felt great because it felt like they really were looking for a teammate. And that's how we end up working once I was on the team. You know, something happens, we're trying to debug. So hopefully you could get some of those interviews. But yeah, ask ahead of time to see. Another one, you may have to assess a basic React component, point out some issues, talk about things that could have been done better, how you can refactor. So yeah, it could be all over the place, but a lot of them fall under here. And again, ask questions, jot down questions all throughout the process. You don't want to forget questions, and it shows that you're engaged. It shows that you care. But you know, if this is a marriage, it's a two-way street. You want to know about your partner as well. So you want to pay attention to any kind of red flags. And so if there's a lack, we were talking about diversity earlier, you know, if that's something that's important to you, pay attention if there's a lack of diversity. Or if they claim to be fun and there's dust on the ping pong tables or all of the fun items that they have, and you just don't feel that synergy when you're in there. You know, you want to pay attention to these things as well. So uh, let's see, what do we got next?